I'll get a different photo. I didn't know that the Teutons were a race. I didn't know that they were my ancestors' race. And this is important to me. People might say, well, what does it matter? Well, it matters because everything's been changed. They often have these long water features right opposite these grand houses, don't they? So it matters because we're not all of the same tribes. And that's what the Bible says. It says that there's different tribes. And you know how political correctness has gone around saying, oh, but we're all the same. We've all got one blood. Well, I expect that that is what's happened here. They have said, oh, it would be really awful if you start calling us bad names. You know, you're picking us out unfairly. You're saying all these horrible things about us. We don't believe them to be true. And so it would seem look at this. It reminds me, that building, of the buildings I talk about in my book The Harvest. Only smaller. If you want to go and get that, it is available in paperback as well if you don't want to buy the ebook. I'll talk about that a bit later. So, the Teutons, the Teutonic race, the Tartars and the Tartar race, I believe we all looked the same. I believe we all looked the same. But one group was not accepting of the other, and they may have said, well, that's not fair, we want to be accepted as part of your society, so let's all just call ourselves something, a blanket term, white or Caucasian. So now the different tribes are all intermingled, and I think that's why we keep hearing that the Europeans don't have a culture, because we're all just so-called white, yeah? And I have a book, I'll display it here. This book talks about how the man with the tash in the Second World War, he was part of a group called the Industrialists. And I believe that the Industrialists are today's globalists. I believe that the man with the tash, a lot of people say that he was a good man who started changing society and all of that. Well, I suspect, the glass houses. I suspect that he participated in the merging of the different groups. Yeah, I suspect he was part of merging the one group into one, so the Caucasians into one group, and then uniting them as a single group against whoever it was who he felt was the threat. And it might be the case that that was a threat, or it might be the case that it wasn't a threat. What I mean is that he joined all the different tribes of that now considered larger group. And united them together so that they weren't the Teutons and the Celts anymore. They were white, Caucasian. And maybe that was part of his plan, because he was an industrialist. I feel that he's taken a role of what Trump has done, and I feel that Trump is a fraud. I guess one of the things that I'm thinking is that the Bible makes more and more sense the more I look into history. But history, my own interpretation of it. Eventually there'll be people who start getting really upset by how you start to look into history from your own perspective. They really don't like to head off, or don't like you heading off the mainstream track. They'll start saying, oh, well, we know what happens when people start looking into things on their own. Genocides happen. Well, how do we know that a genocide isn't already happening? I would say we know that they are, that it is. So I believe that what is happening right now is that our history is being changed. In fact, I believe, and I have a lot of reasons to believe this, and I'll show you my findings so that you can have a look yourself. Oh, the kids are coming. We'll go this way to escape the noise. I believe that the Teutons and that would be the Anglo-Saxons, and the Celts got along. There's a lot of their defences are the same, and you see in wars all the time that pretty much they've got the same defences. So that in and of itself is not a good amount of evidence, but their watch buildings and everything were the same. Their buildings for defence were constructed in the same way. Well, how would they know how to construct the same buildings? I suppose they might have seen the defence buildings and said, hey, they've built these buildings just like this, we should copy them. But those who get to that point to see those buildings have probably, if they are enemies with each other, been shot down. I also get two impressions of the Anglo-Saxons. There's one which says that they are peaceful, and then the other second narrative says they are barbarians. And the reason why I'm more inclined to believe that they were peaceful people is because they had, in that 1914 dictionary, they have written in there Anglophiles and Anglophobes. And I don't think you would have something like that if there was nothing controversial about that group. And the controversy might be the history of that group. Maybe they were the group which were around for the Millennial Kingdom. And maybe the Celts were traitors in that era, because the Celts are still around now, aren't they? The Teutons are not, or we are, but we don't know our history. We're not allowed to speak our ancient language, whereas the Celts are. And this isn't me having a go at the Celts. I'm half Celt, half Anglo-Saxon or Teuton. So there seems to be a reason why the Celts are still allowed to continue their dialect and their society, and yet the Teutons are not. That's just very strange to me. So it makes me suspicious about that era, especially looking at the dictionary and it's saying that the Anglophile and Anglophobe, because you don't get any such language about the Normans. And the Normans invaded England and they brought about a whole entire new monetary system. I have talked about that in other old videos. So it's one of those things where I just think they're hiding this history about the Teutons. They've renamed them already Anglo-Saxons, and now they've renamed them again to merge with different groups. And called them white. And there's another group who call themselves white, but also they call themselves, and I dare not say it because they have a victim card, which means that I can't really easily say the name of that group of people. And it's very frustrating to be in this situation where you just want to sort of question things, but you risk being censored or being certain things happening if you do. So I'm looking into more detail about the Celts and the Anglo-Saxons or Teutons getting on together and having a good history, because there's so much there about them having a bad history together that it's worth looking at the alternative perspective, I believe. Because I certainly don't believe everything that we're told to be true. You know, when you just have these funny feelings that this is probably the case, that's just where I am at the moment. I'm just kind of thinking it's probably the case that the Teutons and the Celts. I mean, there is Merlin within the Celts, and he obviously wasn't a Christian. And who was obviously involved in magic and sorcery. But the Celts did actually turn over to Christianity, or Christians already existed amongst them, but the pagans came along. And there's something that I want to discuss about the pagans. I do see paganism as globalism. It seems to be that all these different religions start to get accepted and brought into, oh gosh, the school kids are coming this way, and I just don't want the loud noise behind me. But paganism to me is globalism, is a globalist religion. It's globalist because it's accepting all the various different gods from around the world and bringing them into, because if you know, Roman Empire was a pagan society before it became Christian, and I'm beginning to think that the Anglo-Saxons, the barbarians or whatever, they turned against, in a peaceful way, against the Roman Empire. They started to be self-sufficient, looking after themselves through their own health, natural health and all of that kind of stuff. And they turned their backs on the Roman Empire, and that's why the Roman Empire collapsed. And I think it collapsed pretty quickly. I think it collapsed in decades, maybe decades. I don't believe it happened within centuries. So that's kind of where I am at with my thinking. That's where my mind is at with history. I think that the Tartars came from Khazaria, and that is where another group came from, of today's groups, which would be the Ash Jays. And in my dictionary, my 1914 dictionary, it does state that Tartar is evil. It means evil. don't we? Well, we're not supposed to, but you get tartar on your teeth. Yeah, tartars are evil, and there's those who, and Teutons have their good side and bad side. They have their friends and their enemies. And I just find that to be really interesting. I know a lot of people are talking about how there was this different kind of electric, and there might have, or different type of energy, and there clearly was, because there were batteries back then. And I don't know if you buy batteries from the shops today, but in the supermarkets you'll see this thing where you put your empty batteries. I'm sure they're reselling them, the empty batteries that people put in those boxes, because I buy batteries and they run out within a day. So I feel like batteries are coming to an end very soon. Anyway, there was different energies, and we've looked at the hydraulic ram. We know that windmills existed, and we know that water wheels existed, and they're trying to push us in this kind of no more energy, no more electric. And I think that it's because it can't continue, not because of the so-called dinosaurs and whatnot. I think that's probably a lot of nonsense. But and I'll be writing a book about the dinosaurs, the so-called dinosaurs, next year. But I don't think it's because it's all going to run out, but it could do. I know there's alternative media who say that it can't, but I think as data becomes the new money, then the collection of data will become more expensive and require more energy, and I think that it's going to struggle from that perspective. From a financial perspective, it's going to become very difficult in it's funny because I keep going to avoid the people, so I keep going down these obscure paths, and they keep following me, all these different people. It's funny because I think that's generally what people do. They like to follow whoever is ahead of them. They found their way. They kept following me. I think they thought that I was heading in the direction they wanted to go, and I was heading a different way. And people do that, don't they? They just end up following whoever is ahead of them and just assume that they know. They must know. They're in front of me, they're above me, they're ahead of me. So I've learnt a lot from reading this dictionary, and I'm going to keep at it because I think that it's a very important element that we've got to continue to do. J77 or J. I think that's an important character. I've seen coins which start with J or I, So there's a great deal of learning to do, and we'll get it done. We've got so much to learn about ourselves. I can only think of one reason why they would pretend that the Teutons were just this one big mass. And that is probably so that they can better be deceived. And then that begs the question, or at least in my opinion it does, of the ideas of doppelgangers. Because we know that we know about doppelgangers and like the evil twin thing, and I think that is a reality, possibly. And that's something that we'll need to look into. I'll have a look to see if doppelganger is in that dictionary. Tartarian is in there, or Tartaria, but I don't believe that the Tartars were the inventors necessarily. They could have been. I mean, that building that we've just been to, J774, it sometimes makes me wonder, are we in a different timeline to what they say? So, are we at the end of the Millennial Kingdom? And they've etched out the I and the J numbers on as much as they can do, and tried to hide these parts of the characters marking our timeline. And so they're saying, well, we're in 2024. That was, I'm guessing they're going to say that that was 1774. But maybe we're at the end of the first 1,000 years of Christ's rule, and therefore we might be headed into a thousand or so many years of Satan's season. And maybe when these other people are saying, yeah, Satan's season started round about 1776, maybe that's correct, and maybe it will end soon, although we don't know when. Oh look, it's a dovecote. Oh, they don't use it because, well, it might do. I haven't seen a dovecote that big. Look at the ladder. That's for grabbing the chicks. This is one of the ways in which they fed themselves. They'd take the eggs and the young chicks. This is one of the things which emerges in some of my books, because my books are all about these old techniques which helped people. Not all of them, they're sort of, the entire book isn't about that, it's about the evil side and the good side turning away, which is what I think happened with the Anglo-Saxons. It's a beautiful dovecote as well, look at it. You know, those domes, they could have been dovecotes, and maybe inside they were boarded up. But if you look at that, it could have been that people, that those buildings had dovecotes on top of them at the top, so that those people within the building were fed self-sufficiently. Yeah, there's ideas in my books, The Harvest in particular. It's about the Satan's season, which I believe that we are in, and I'm now questioning all sorts of things. Are we at the end of Millennial Kingdom and then coming to the end of Satan's season as well, like the other people have said? So anyway, regardless, that's where I think we are. And within the books I talk about how much deceit and the cycle of deceit, how it's been an ongoing cycle, just as it is in the Bible. And the reason why I've talked about it like that is because I think that it's sometimes people dismiss the Bible, and I don't think that they should, and they'll be more open to modern day aspects or interpretations of it perhaps. And so long as they're aware, is that okay to say that and do that kind of thing? I'd hope so. Anyway, I'm sure this video is ages long. I don't want to follow all the news and all of that clickbait stuff. I'm not interested in the news. I don't follow alternative media because they just keep repeating the news. And to be honest with you, I don't even know that there's any legitimacy about any aspect of the news which is being reported. Hollywood has been able to create war scenes since the 1990s, you know, convincing war scenes. So I'm just not aware of any, I'm just not sure that we are in we are hearing the correct information, I guess. And if alternative media are just re-reporting everything that's mainstream media are reporting, then we're not actually learning anything. It's just basically confirming everything that the media say, but with a different spin on it. And I don't even think that that's a good thing. I'm aware of Jordan Peterson's involvement with the Ark, and I don't trust the Ark and all of these things. History is definitely repeating itself. You know, these different tribes, different belief systems, and yeah. I'll do more on the A to Z of the old world. I do enjoy doing that. The Harvest is out now, paperback, ebook. It's I haven't bothered with different ebook providers, platforms. I'm just selling it on Amazon now, but I can't really cater to everyone who gets upset about having to buy off Amazon. It's the biggest marketplace for my book. But yeah, it does bring about how communities are built outside of the evil society using old techniques like cob buildings and grass and natural roofs. And it also talks about how in danger those are who have been deceived, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. So please like, subscribe and comment, share, thumbs up, everything. Thank you.